Well, hey there, Fellowship family. Welcome to your one-stop shop for all things church life. I'm Mark Francis, once again, your host for today. Super excited to have a couple in here that I've known for a few years now, that ever since you've been living in Winchester. And I'm excited to get to know you guys because, Kevin, you were on the stage for the Fellowship family meeting, and that might have been a first for you as well. And now people are like clamoring. They're like, we want to learn more about who Kevin is. He's this behind-the-scenes master. So I have Kevin and Margo Bouchillon with me here today. And yes, you are on staff. And so I'll say hello first. Yeah.
Hi.
How are you guys? So it's almost, this might sound bad, but it's almost we got a 2-for-1 deal here because what Kevin brings, Margo, you bring doubly as well. And I'm excited to learn about this because you guys have such a heart for service. And so we want to get to know you since you are on staff, and also want the congregation to hear more of your heart and what you have gleaned over the years here at FBC. But before we go there, I want to get to know you guys first. So where are you guys from originally?
I grew up in Mississippi.
And I grew up in Florida.
Okay. So not the same town?
No.
Not even close.
Okay. And so if you grew up in the South, then you probably handled extreme summers and weather. And do you like the heat or no?
No.
We lived for a long time in Florida, and I think that drove that out of us.
Yeah.
So,
So how did you guys meet if you guys grew up in different states?
actually, we met through our parents, of all things. Our parents knew each other before we ever met. When I was in college, my family moved from Mississippi down to Fort Myers. My dad took a new job down in Fort Myers, Florida, and they started going to a church where Margo's family went.
Huh.
And I ended up meeting Margo one summer when I came home for the summer, my new home for the summer.
New home?
Going
While
to
you were in
Florida.
college?
While
Yes.
we were in college.
Okay.
So, and then we got married after I graduated, but then I dragged her back to Mississippi State for a year while I went through grad school. Gave her a very brief and probably forlorn introduction into the state of Mississippi.
Uh-huh.
It was
Okay.
a terrible winter, and a Florida girl in the winter.
Yeah, it was one of our biggest ice storms we'd ever had.
No kidding. So you went to grad school?
Yeah.
What did you go to grad school for?
I had a master's in accounting, and that's what I did for 35 years before I retired back in 2017.
Wow. Okay. So Margo, what's your version of the story?
Yeah,
How did you meet Kevin?
It's very, very similar,
Uh-huh.
believe it or not. We met on the back porch of a friend who was showing, at the time, a slideshow of a trip that his brother and my father had gone on a missions trip down to Honduras. And the little apartment was so crowded that we wound up on the back porch peeking in through the window, and we just, started talking or whatever. But then as it progressed, Kevin had a old car that he was having restored by the guy that I was actually dating.
Huh.
And so I didn't like Kevin much at the beginning because he was spending all the time with my boyfriend, and
Uh-huh.
I wasn't getting to see my boyfriend. But the day that my boyfriend and I broke up, Kevin came to the youth pastor's house where I was babysitting
Mhm.
and asked me out on a date.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Right on the same day that you broke up?
Yes, the exact same
Okay.
day. And
All right.
kind of out of spite, that's my boyfriend. I went on the date and never been the same since.
And then the rest is history.
Yeah.
Right?
Much.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned that you guys did connect through church and through a
Yeah.
pastor.
Yeah.
So were you both believers then before you met? And how did each of you guys come to know the Lord?
Yeah, we both grew up in Christian families. My family, we went to a Baptist church in Mississippi, and my whole family was very involved in the church growing up. I was saved when I was 10 years old in a crusade kind of setting. So I'd been around the church pretty much my entire life.
Yeah, and I grew up in Southern Baptist churches, and I was saved when I was about 4 years old.
That's the Mark Carey story, right? So similar ages, 4 years old. Yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I just couldn't stand the thought of being apart from Jesus and from God, and I knew I wanted that relationship even at 4 years old. But as I grew and I come to hear other people's testimonies and other people's Christians come to Christ stories, I couldn't remember exactly what my story was. So when I was 13 on Easter Sunday, they called it at the time rededicated
Mm.
my life to the Lord, and that's the date that I have in my mind that I knew that I was a child of God.
And really, again, becoming of age or having more
Yeah.
awareness of
Yeah.
what that looks like. That's a cool story to then segue into when then you guys come together as believers, newlyweds, and living in Mississippi. How
For
long?
9 months.
For 9 months. Okay, so then where did you migrate after
I
that?
took my first job out of school in Jacksonville, Florida. And then from there, we went Jacksonville to Tampa, to Jacksonville, to Orlando, to New York and New Jersey, to Washington and Oregon. And finally, we retired to Virginia. So we kind of
Wow.
moved all over the place.
Did you say Seattle?
Washington, Oregon. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So a combination, Washington and Oregon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a house in Washington, and for 5 years, I had client base in Portland. So I rented a house in Portland and drove back and forth every week for 5 years.
Okay. And that's how you became a fan of all the Seattle sports teams,
Yes.
I'm assuming. Yes. Of the Seattle sports teams, which is your favorite?
The Mariners, because we're
Okay.
big baseball
Baseball
fans.
fans. So it was a good season this past year, but
First one in a long, long
couldn't
time.
finish it off, though.
No.
That's
Hey,
okay.
the fact that we went as far as we did was
Yeah.
really nice.
Yeah. Well, so you were moving around the country ultimately for jobs,
Yes.
and then you start having a family and kids. How many kids do you guys have?
3 kids. They're spread out. Our oldest son lives with his family outside of York, Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
He's in education. Colin and Esther and their family live here,
Mhm.
and that's actually how we got to this church. Colin's also in education. He's a high school
Mhm.
teacher and an assistant band director. And then our daughter and her family live down in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay. Neat. And so, yeah, ultimately you were retiring and figuring out where's the best place to live.
Yeah, we looked pretty much from Tennessee to Pennsylvania along I-81
Uh-huh.
because that was kind of the route that would get us to all of them, and ended up here.
Nice. So,
We have me to blame for that.
okay. You wanted to at least get near some sort of
Yes.
family, right?
Yes.
She did not like the idea of being 6-hour plane ride away from grandchildren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's helpful. It makes sense. And so, yeah, Colin and Esther are also members here at FBC. So you guys have a little bit of a family Bouchillon camp going on around here, which is cool. So as you guys settled into Winchester, was FBC kind of the natural choice because Colin and Esther were here, or did you guys look around? What did that look like of landing here at FBC?
Before we actually moved here, when we would come to visit Colin and Esther when they lived in Front Royal or
Manassas.
Manassas, that was the other place, they were coming to FBC.
Mhm.
So when we came to visit them, we would go to church with them here
Mhm.
at FBC and just fell in love with the church.
Hmm.
So then when we started looking for somewhere to live, we said, well, if we move anywhere within, 30, 45 minutes of FBC, that's where we're going to church.
Mm.
So that's,
So we actually, once we moved here, we never visited
Yeah,
another church.
never
We
did.
pretty much knew.
we knew where we wanted to be.
Yeah. And so that was 2017.
Well, Margo got here in 2016, as you well know, because you helped with this.
Yeah.
We were looking at houses in 2016 just to figure, what's available. We found a house that we really liked, and with your help, we put in a low ball offer on it. I'm not really expecting that they were going to accept it very quickly. So we ended up moving Margo over in 16
Mm-hmm.
so that we didn't leave the house vacant over the winter. And I moved in an apartment out in Seattle until I retired in July of 17.
Yeah. And when you got here to FBC, you guys instantly got plugged in. What were some of the ministries and the things that you guys joined right away?
Well, I love to cook, and I knew that one of my spiritual gifts was hospitality. So I looked for ways to be able to get involved in anything to do with the kitchen.
Mm.
I joined Deborah Clark in the funeral, I don't know what team, I
Sure.
guess, funeral team. And from that, it kind of sprouted to different areas of work with the kitchen in the background.
Yeah. You have that heart of hospitality, I would say. And
I
yeah,
think so.
right?
I enjoy it very
It's great.
much.
Well, I mean, it's fun to have people that enjoy those things because there's others who just despise it and are like, don't get me in a kitchen. But it's great to have you be able to help a lot of those different ministries. Kevin, how about you?
I'm a tinkerer. I like to fix things.
Uh-huh.
And when I retired, I did not want to do what some of my fellow partners did, to go get on, public company boards and stay heavily connected into the business world. I wanted to do something different. So we have a 3-car garage that I converted into a wood shop and started making furniture, especially very long dining room tables. But then people like Jennifer Weissman would call me and say, "Hey, I have this lady that would like some help with something. Could you come help with this?" And I had built up a little bit of a base of, I was just helping fix things for people. And then I was constantly tinkering around the house and doing stuff like that. And somehow Jennifer suggested to John Van Drunen that maybe I'd like to come work here. And between those two and Larry Mendoza, I think it was a given that I didn't have a chance. So I ended up starting working here in 2022.
And so your background wouldn't necessarily lend itself to facilities, but you're saying that you like to you like to tinker. What have you built and done over the years to?
My therapy from the business world was kind of swinging a hammer, instead of beating my children or my wife or anything like that, or, going out and drinking or something, I would get in my garage and build things. And then we also have 2 or 3 houses that we kind of stripped down to the bare walls and rebuilt ourselves. So I sort of developed it from that. My dad was an architect, so I had a little bit of background in the construction world anyway. So it just it kind of builds on itself. And, honestly, with YouTube now, there's not much on there you can't figure out how to do if you're willing to take the time.
I think that's the key is having the willingness to tinker and the willingness to learn and the willingness to go tackle it.
To make a few mistakes.
Right. Sure. Well, and you came on at a very unique time. So as you shared at the Fellowship Family meeting, you only just hit the tip of the iceberg of some of the things and projects that you've gone over the years. What was the most challenging, just initial, just story that you want to pass on of where you're like, oh wow, this is a big building. This is not just tinkering in my house.
John and Larry met me for lunch one day, and we're talking about stuff. And of course, I'm thinking director of facilities. I'm kind of thinking more on the custodial side, keeping things clean and all. But John had a vision that, he knew that we were getting older buildings, that we were going to have to do some capital improvements to. A lot of my professional background has been in project management. So I brought not only the interest of getting my hands dirty, but in the project management side. The very first project I took on within a month of starting is we started rewiring every single light in all 4 of our buildings, so that we converted all of our fluorescent lights, about 3,500 lights, into LEDs.
Yeah.
And between that and doing some service on some of our plumbing, we drove down our utility bills by 25-30% almost overnight.
Wow.
Now, unfortunately, since then, all the savings we got from spending less on usage have gone up because rates keep going up, but it has allowed us to manage to a fairly flat level until recently. We've stripped out the savings now, but
before you move on off of that, I mean, it still is a huge savings.
Oh, yeah.
Because if we didn't do that project, the expenses would have been even more through the roof. And so that certainly is value added of, it's neat to have the oversight and just the foresight that John Van Drunen was kind of pitching to you early on to say, hey, we need some help here.
Well, and it's good too, because I had 2 volunteers that helped me with this project. We have a lot of talent in this church, and a lot of the stuff we do in-house, between the staff that we have in the facilities group, and then people that just have a heart for, working with us, we've been able to save a lot of money because of just the sheer labor cost. For example, the next really big project, there were several other projects, but the next really big project was, renovating the auditorium. And that was not done just for aesthetics, but there were some structural things like problems with the stage that needed to be fixed, some electrical problems that needed to be fixed. There's sound problems that, the sound system, the sound deadening stuff we had really wasn't working for that space. But we probably did 60% of the labor for that whole project. And we sat down and calculated out that, for the total cost of the project, we probably saved about $100,000.
Wow.
Which is not small money. I look at it, every dollar I save on facilities is something that we can either spend through things like Follow the Star or through all the missions work that Scott and Jim do, or, just have available for other things. I don't like it when we have unexpected expenses because I like coming in under budget. And, last year I can tell you I didn't because we had a lot of unusual expenses.
But again, that's part of the nature of the beast that you have with the age of the building. And we'll talk about that in a second as we dive into kind of what the future looks like. But the project management component of it, I'm fascinated by that because it's not just having knowledge of how to fix things, but it's really coordinating not just the volunteers of our church, but other contractors and the different ministries around here. What did that look like for you? Let's just pick an example. That the main auditorium, that project was not just a simple one that you just had to go through.
We didn't do it the way most people would do it because we were trying to manage it in the house. Now, if we'd have hired all contractors to come in, we probably could have done the whole thing inside of 30 days. We took 4 months to do it, and there were a couple of weekends where we had a bare wood stage up there, and there were weekends where people would come in and they'd see all the scabs on the walls from where we were patching all, because we did it very slowly and did it with volunteers and in-house rather than trying to manage the all of the various contractors. And I have discovered that managing contractors around here is not the easiest thing in the world to do.
Sure.
Because it's very hard to find a lot of contractors for things, and getting their schedules lined up. I don't know how a housing general contractor around here does it because, I'm used to, going. I came out of, the big four of accounting firms, used to everything going very fast. You throw resources at it. Things don't go that fast in a church.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they can't legally tell you they don't want to work with you, but you sort of get the impression they don't want to work with you. And then trying to manage between them and a bunch of volunteers that I don't expect my volunteers to treat this like a job where they're just going to drop everything else and do it. So I have to work around their schedules. So yeah, it was a bit of a challenge. And all of the projects we've done since then, I've learned more and more on how to better do that, because managing volunteers is interesting because everybody has limitations on what amount of time they can give. Nobody's going to come give you 40 to 60 hours a week to do something. And that's not what we're asking for.
It certainly is a management of volunteers, but it's also, I think you can call a ministry, right?
Yes.
And so I know that it's kind of a inside thought here at FBC that like the staff is not here to do all the work. We're here to help support the body of Christ so they can do the work of the ministry. And even with facility, you can say that holds true.
Yes.
How have you seen ministry occur behind the scenes here when you're working with volunteers and working with fixing projects?
Well, I mean, it's done in several ways. We always seem to have a couple of teenagers on staff. And I had two that had started like 3 weeks before I did, and they were greener than I was on facility stuff. And, one of them now still works for us, is going to college and has a full-time job, but he still works 15 hours a week to help us out because he's learned to enjoy it. the other one has gone on to his next career now. But the growth I saw in those two guys, and I've got somebody now that I'm trying to do the same thing with. At the same time, I do get calls from time to time that people need community service hours. And that could be anything from, Liberty University requires a certain number of service hours to graduate. Boy Scouts need service hours for Eagle Scout projects. Everything to, people get into small legal problems that, they need community service because they got a speeding ticket or they got, in some cases, maybe even shoplifting or something. We're very, very careful about who we bring in for that. But generally, these people are highly, highly motivated.
Yeah.
And we've used a lot of people in community service to help them out, but it helps us out. And I get I tend to try to be around them while they're here. So I get a lot of time to talk to them. And that gives me a chance to really develop a relationship and talk to them. And they're, it's not just church members. I mean, there's a lot of non-church members that get referred here. And people know that if they're going to come here, they're going to have to get through an interview with me and they're going to have to work. And I've had one unsuccessful community service that the person just didn't stick it out and stay with it. And, even the hours that she did put in, she didn't get any credit for because she didn't take it seriously. She didn't try hard, but the other ones have been fantastic. And, I would love to bring them back in if I could figure out a way to do it, but they don't need to.
It's fascinating to think about, again, just our own internal body of people who are volunteering, but to have the community coming to us, very similar to Follow the Star. We're bringing people onto our campus and presenting Christ to them through just serving, whether they were forced to be here or not. They're going to potentially see the light of Christ in what's going on around here, which is cool. Margo, I'll turn to you and just talking about what you've gleaned from living here in Winchester and being a part of our Fellowship Bible Church community. What has stood out to you as you've done ministry here, and how has Fellowship Bible Church shaped your spiritual growth?
The one thing that really stands out to me about Fellowship, I've been in many, many churches, and grace being preached here, and not just preached at you, but it's lived. We get grace from the Lord, and then we in turn are able to give grace to other people, and it's just a mistake. It's okay, no problem, that kind of thing. So I guess grace is my biggest takeaway.
Cool. And Kevin, how about being on staff? You get to see a lot of the behind the scenes things, not just with facilities, but with the ministries here.
I had no idea how much stuff goes on at this church until I got on staff. And something that people have said to me after the comments I made at the last family meeting, I think a lot of people I've had some people that come up that have been in this church for 30 years that still had no idea how much stuff goes on.
The number of events per week,
there are
right?
so many things that this church is connected into this community. But the other side of it is, I make a big deal of this every year at our Christmas party. I always say thanks to everybody because the staff here is incredible. I've never worked in a place where I've gotten along with the people I work with so well. And then just see every one of them, 8 weeks after I started, we had a problem down in one of the classrooms downstairs. Well, everybody from the admin office came over and helped me clean out those rooms in no time. I mean, it's like, I wasn't expecting that. Rose has painted half of that auditorium helping me do that. That wasn't her job, was it? And she has lots and lots of things she has to do. People step up all the time, and the staff here have been great in supporting me in what I need to do. And then they come back and say the same thing about me, but I was like, well, this is just my job. This is what I'm supposed to do. And that's sort of the attitude I think around here is just like, this isn't anything special. This is what we're supposed to do. We're servants. We're supposed to serve, and as well as serving God, we serve each other.
Mm. And in this season of Christmas that we're in right now, I think more than ever, we're going to have people coming and going through this building. Probably this is the season where visitors are going to be showing up after Follow the Star, around Christmas time. Families who may only come to church once or twice a year, and then they'll be coming to Christmas Eve service. Potentially visitors, family members will bring their family here. So having the two of you guys with the hospitality mindset, I think is to be helpful. What would you encourage our body to consider when it comes to engaging this church, but also just the building and treating it like your home? Because I think you guys have that mentality. So what causes you to have that mentality? Like, this is my house, and what would you pass on to the congregation to have that same attitude?
Well, my staff are really tired of hearing me say this, because I say the mantra all the time that facilities, our mission should be to eliminate distraction.
Mm-hmm.
So when people come to the church, I want them focusing on the real reason why they came to the church, not focusing on whether they're too hot or too cold, or whether a room is
Right.
filthy, or any number of things that can become distractions. If they don't ever think about facilities, I feel like I've been a success.
Yeah.
So I try to get my own staff to think about, if you walk by, you see something on the ground, pick it up. I mean, why go tell somebody else that you need to take care of this? Take care of it yourself. And, it's not really the congregation's job necessarily, but if you see something that's bothering you, either let me know real quick or do something about it. It's very easy to fall into that mindset. Well, this is somebody else's problem.
I think it's something simple, like just when the restrooms are empty of like the paper towels, like how is anybody going to know about that unless it gets passed on? So you notice something simple like that, and
because we don't want people to ever have to think about that. If they're thinking about those things, that's distracting them from why they're really in the building. From Margo's side, I think what she hasn't told you is she did all the cooking for Embrace Grace this past semester, and I of course I get to taste everything, so I had good times with that. But I think from her standpoint, it was something they never had to worry about. Not just the girls that were coming, but the counselors and the staff that were there. They never worried about eating or anything like that. It was all there. It was all prepared for them. They didn't have to worry about cleaning up afterward. They could come in and focus on why they were there. And I think that's something that Margo and a few other people do really well around here is, with the hospitality side, they just make it very comfortable for people.
Well, I'd like to just give you the floor for just a couple seconds to give us a quick update on the building. There was the information that was passed on in the fellowship family meeting a couple months ago. But I remember in that same evening, you're saying that tomorrow there was a phone call. And so I'm sure things have been progressing. With what you're able to share and pass on, what would you say is going on right now behind the scenes?
We've had 2 Zoom calls with the Visioneering.
Imagineering is Disney, I think, right? Wow. Okay.
It's Visioneering. We've had two Zoom meetings with them. We have another one coming up next week. We did a little course correcting with after the first meeting. We liked a lot of what they were, some ideas they were bringing. We kind of said that this isn't us in a few other ways. The second meeting, it was a night and day change. We're going to, they're ready to pick things apart, and they're going like, well, what about this? I'm like, oh, that's a cool idea. Oh, what about this? Well, that's a cool idea. And they were telling us, well, you really don't want to do that because that's going to add tons of cost. And it's like they're starting to, the next meeting, they're supposed to really have pen to paper with some drawings for us to start talking about and really understanding what we can do and what it's going to cost, so that we can kind of get to the next phase of starting to really consider, what are our options?
Yeah.
Because I will tell you, from leading the little building committee that we had, it's not easy. A lot of what we need to do is just really relocate people into different spaces.
Mm-hmm.
That's not as easy as it sounds, because it's like a domino effect. You move one person and that follows the next and the next and the next. And then when you put on top of that some of the age of some of our buildings, the things you can and can't do become multiplied. So I don't have any great announcements yet.
Yeah.
I think we're moving in a positive direction. I think whatever we do will be seen as a positive. How far we go, I don't know, because it's kind of hard to tell until you put numbers down, and because
Sure.
The dollars do matter.
And if anything that I've gleaned in our conversation, I think the congregation can trust that you, John Van Drunen, and the elders are certainly conscious of costs.
Absolutely.
And are looking, especially with the story of the main auditorium renovations, that are looking to do it in a way that's going to give the most bang for our buck, but also best serve and best serve our congregation and the community with what the building is going to achieve with the renovations, right? And so I can just speak from hearing you guys say, I know that it's going to be done well, but it's also going to be done as effectively and efficiently as possible.
Well, there's
with the costs.
Every dollar we have, there's a lot of competition for that dollar. Do we use it on more missions activities? Do we use it for other programs that we want to have within the church? And we're not a program-oriented church.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I say program, it's very broadly based. We've got fellowship send out that we're trying to do. How much can we contribute to that to make that more successful? So I'm not looking to spend a ton of money on a building just to spend money on a building and have a fancy building. On the flip side, I'm kind of the curmudgeon that says, we're going to have to spend some money because the building's aging, and we generally we've gotten a little bit proactive in the last year, but before that, it was more reactive. When things broke, we would deal with it. Sometimes when things break, it's too late.
Mm-hmm.
So we're trying to get ahead of that now with some of the aging stuff. We've done really well with these buildings. I mean, if you think about the age of our buildings, and I talked to my predecessors like Dennis Parker and Larry Mendoza, and they were honestly never given the kind of funds I was given to fix things. And the fact that they've managed to keep things moving along as they have is nothing short of a miracle. But at some point in time, you have to kind of move on.
And God provides. I mean, he's been faithful through this whole church's history, and one little thing after another of growing the buildings. And we have the building that was here built in 2002. And so there's going to be a renovation to it that we know God will provide, and we can trust that process to you guys and the team to be able to make all those right decisions. So thank you so much. I appreciate that, and the congregation was appreciative of that as well. Real quick, if people are watching and listening and are like, I actually am kind of handy and I've got a couple of spare hours, do they contact you?
Oh, contact me.
Yeah.
I'm always looking for people that are willing to spend some time with something. And if somebody considers themselves really good at a particular area, that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
There used to be a guy here that before I got here, evidently he was a master plumber. And then when he moved away, we really haven't had an expert plumber. Larry and I do a pretty good job of changing out the flush valves and toilets and things like that. But when we have a really big plumbing issue, we have to go hire out. So having somebody like that, I do have a couple of really good electricians that help us out. We're constantly doing things like painting and just physical labor sometimes is helpful. There are several people that are wondering why I haven't contacted them back, because we did put out a call to help with a lot of the outside stuff back in September, and I haven't gotten back to the people that have volunteered yet. I need to do that, but between Global Church and everything else, it's been a little crazy. But certainly before the spring, having more help with the grounds we're gonna reach out. There's just a shout out to Nancy Dahl. She takes care of the around the preschool area,
just the gardens,
and
the courtyard area. Yep.
She's here every week taking care of that, and I greatly appreciate that. And that's you just can't survive around here without a lot of help, because we can't really afford to pay 15 full-time people to work on facilities.
Mm-hmm.
We have 8 part-time people,
Mm.
and that's where we're working from. So volunteers are very helpful.
So I'll give out your email, Kevin B, right?
Yes.
At fbcva.org. So track him down.
And I will get back to you. I'm not as good about getting back quickly as I should be, but I will get back to you.
Well, thank you guys for being here. It's just great to get to know you both, and the work that both you guys do behind the scenes. Margo, I know you probably have a log of how many hours you're here each week, but I see you a lot. So thank you for what you do behind the scenes as well. And Kevin, I appreciate that. And I know that the elders do desire to have another meeting, whether it be a special meeting or at the next fellowship family meeting in the spring, to give more updates about the building. So more information will come as we have it. So you've heard it from first person right here of where we are, where we stand with the progress.
And it's very positive progress.
Yeah, it's awesome. And as we're preparing for the Christmas season, keep that idea of being hospitable and hosting, and thinking that this building is your house as well, to all of us that attend. And if you see a piece of trash in the ground, pick it up. And if you see something wrong, track people down to fix it, right? So again, it's great to have you guys a part of our church, and thank you for all that you guys do. For all the rest of you guys watching and listening, continue to remember that you can let us know how you'd like to share your stories with us. You don't necessarily have to be on staff to come here and share your story. We want to hear from you. So you can go to fbcva.org/podcasts, and you can always remember that you can learn about missions through the Global Church podcast that we have here at FBC. And you also can stay connected with follow-up of the sermons each and every week with the Sermon Spotlight, as well with that podcast that releases every Tuesday on a weekly basis. So really, I'm excited about what God's going to do in the future. And so, Kevin, Margo, thanks again for being here. And the fact of the matter, guys, is that we want to have Christ be the focus of our lives each and every day.